Live from the studios at the New School Center for Media on the Harriman campus in Albany. And Jim Steele joined in studio this afternoon with Kevin, Chief of the Volunteer Fire Department in Westerlo. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Now you're coming on the show to talk about a drill that your company is doing tonight, is it?
It's going to be Monday evening at 7
Monday,
o'clock.
okay. Go ahead.
The Berne Fire District is actually hosting the drill. It's at the BKW, Berne-Knox-Westerlo School. So we're bringing all mutual aid companies in and having a very large mutual aid drill.
So how many companies altogether and how many firefighters
I think there's going to be 7 to 8 companies, along with EMS, and firefighters will range anywhere from 40 to 70, depending on what kind of turnout we have.
And I would guess it's pretty often and regular that you wind up having to use other departments to assist when there's a fire call, an actual call?
That's correct. With the number of people in the fire service today, and it's very hard to get volunteers, especially in the daytime, and have the availability to respond. So typically we do drill with our neighbors quite frequently, and we actually use them. Yeah.
Now, how do you decide who winds up being in charge of? Is it depending on where an actual fire takes place? Like Westerlo, you would be in charge. If it was Berne, the Berne chief would be in charge.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And do you as chiefs kind of work together and say, well, we had this situation before, and you talk to each other, or is it?
Yeah, there's a Rural Fire Chiefs Association, so we get together once a month and we talk about different challenges that we have, different calls, different drills that we want to plan. So we'll get together with them and go through those mutual aid drills.
So how long have you been doing this?
I've been in the fire service for about 22 years now.
Wow, and it's all moving up the ranks from starting out as just somebody walking in off the street who says they want to be a volunteer firefighter. Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, you start volunteer firefighter, you take a few classes, and then work your way up, lieutenant, captain, and then assistant chiefs, all the way up to chief.
And are you elected as the chief?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And you get what are the perks of being the chief? Is there any, or is just a lot of volunteer time on your part?
It's more responsibility and a lot more things to do.
Yeah. I know one of the girls in our radio class here in the morning is just going through the firefighters course in Scaticoke, and she's been telling us about some courses that she's been taking in meth lab.
Yep.
She has to take tests, and she came in with a book that had to be 8 to 10 inches thick of all of this stuff that she's supposed to read the whole book. So I mean, it's not a simple thing.
No, it's a challenging service, and the Firefighter 1 class is kind of the entry-level class. It's 87 hours of instruction and includes 5 lessons in hazmat. It teaches you ground ladders, teaches you hoses, and that's just, the very basics. That's like going to the military, and that's your basic training. That's not your whole career. Doesn't talk about how to get into cars and helping people during auto accidents. So they have separate classes for that as well.
Now, in Westerlo, do you have a certain number of, do you get a lot of paramedic calls or emergency situation like car accidents and things like that? More than you get fire calls?
Yeah, car accidents by far. Thankfully, our fire prevention efforts throughout the years have done well and actually reduced the number of fires. So we actually respond to a lot of other emergencies, car accidents, farm machinery, those types of things. And
do you kind of orchestrate all of it? You ever miss actually going into a burning structure or getting the hands-on as opposed to being in charge?
That's what mutual aid's for. That's when we get the opportunity to go and help out our neighbors, and if they don't have a particular assignment for us, then we're in the door.
So you're sometimes still in a burning structure?
Yes.
At this point? All right, let's talk a little bit more about this exercise that you're having on Monday night, because it's not as simple as saying, okay, let's do this, and it just kind of happens.
Took about 2 months to plan. Rich Gills is the chief of Berne Fire. He's been working on a lot of the planning in the background of this, and even though we've done it year after year, we still need to go through all the planning because we have to move a lot of water. We don't have hydrants on the hill towns like we have in the city of Albany, so we have to move all the water that we need. And this operation, we're going to move about 40,000 gallons of water.
Okay, now when you say move, what do you mean by that?
Pick it up from a stream, lake, pond, anywhere we can find it. And
like buckets or truckloads or
typically
whatever.
Tankers, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 gallons at a time.
Yeah. And that seems like it would be quite an effort in itself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And in this case, it's a planned event, so you know you need to get that. But in the case of an emergency, that probably becomes even that more difficult to gather the water to try to put whatever fire out.
And then the response times too, because for example, our district's 56 square miles. So
Wow.
typically we're covering a lot of area. It takes a lot of travel time, and if the water source that we need is say 3 to 4 miles away, we may have to move the water that much. So you have to bring in enough people to move enough water that you need in a short period of time.
And how many firefighters do you have in your company?
I believe last count we had 38.
Okay, which for a 56-mile radius doesn't sound like it's a whole lot.
No, it's quite small.
So is that number low as compared to what maybe it used to be? I mean, are you losing volunteers? Are you in need of more volunteers?
We're always in need of more volunteers, and a lot of people today is 2 jobs, they don't have time, family, kids, a lot of their obligations. But just remember the volunteers and the volunteer service. These guys drop whatever they're doing to help people that they don't even know. So if you join an organization like that, you can find out that imagine what they'll do for the people they do know.
Yeah.
They're definitely brothers and sisters in the fire service, and they help us out.
And is it are employers generally pretty respectful of the fact that if Joe needs to leave because there's a fire call, I mean, do they work together with the employers also?
It's actually better in the state government and the counties and the town government. A lot of times those guys will let their people leave, but other employers, if that's your job, then you're expected to be at your job. So it depends on the employer, what's going on, whether or not
their
they'll
needs
allow.
are at that moment.
Yep.
They may really need you to be at their place and can't really spare you because their business will suffer as a result.
Correct.
Yeah. How many fire and or emergency calls on an annual basis do you get in Westerlo?
Typically we'll do say 90 to 110 calls a year, but the last couple of years been a little bit higher with Hurricane Irene coming through. We did 63 calls in 3 days. And then Superstorm Sandy, we actually went down to Long Island to help out in Long Beach for a couple of days. So,
and I just wonder, I mean, I'm sure this is something that most people don't even think about, but every time the alarm goes off and you guys are getting in the truck or whatever vehicles you may be using and leave the firehouse, that's costing somebody money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably not a small amount of money either. I would imagine those trucks are using a good amount of gas and all of that stuff involved. So where does all the money come from?
Most of our revenue is from taxes, but considering the amount of money it would cost to have paid staff occupy the firehouses, the last estimate they did, most volunteer fire departments save millions of dollars for taxpayers. So they're not actually manning between the salaries, benefits, overtime that they have to pay to have a station staffed.
Let's go back to the event that you're having on Monday night. Talked a little bit about the planning, but now what's actually going to happen when you start the day? Like, take us through what the day will consist of.
So in the evening, what we're going to do is we're going to begin with Berne responding to a simulated structure fire at the school. They're going to simulate having some students inside, so they're going to bring in and begin 2 parts. One's a water operation where they're actually going to try moving a large amount of water to simulate if they did need to use that much water. And then the other portion of the event is going to have interior firefighters going in doing victim searches, orientation to the building, and an accountability system is the big thing. We've got a new accountability system to meet the new federal requirements. So we have to scan each of the firefighters, know who's on scene, and make sure that everybody there is accounted for.
And do they start from the firehouse in this, or are you at wherever the training
No, we're
site is?
we're going to start at the firehouse, and we're going to respond in. It'll be a little bit of a slower response than we normally would, but we're still going to be pulling people in just like it would be in the controlled chaos of a normal emergency.
Right. And how often do you do this the drill?
This
type
drill
situations?
is annually.
Okay. And is it a requirement?
It's more of making sure that everybody's working with each other. It's not necessarily a requirement that we have to do it, but it's much better to make sure that we work with each other as frequently as possible.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to cover? I mean, are we leaving anything out? I would just because I want to make sure that we cover everything that people might need to know about volunteer fire companies, for example.
I guess the last thing is that I don't want everybody to think that, in order to be a firefighter, you have to be an interior structural firefighter and run into burning buildings.
Mm-hmm.
We have jobs in the fire service from everybody, bookkeeping, accounting. If you just want to come out and help out at a pancake breakfast, there's tasks for everybody, either fire police, directing traffic at the scenes. They're all critical jobs that somebody needs to do. So certainly if we could get anybody to come down and help us, we'd certainly take the help.
Do you find that a lot of families wind up getting involved in the volunteer process?
Multi-generational, typically.
Yeah. The girl that I was talking about in our morning radio class that's is a volunteer firefighter in Schaghticoke, initially said before she started taking the course, I'm not going in any burning buildings. I'm not doing that.
Yep.
I'm not doing it. And now she's, I don't know, maybe 3 months in at this point, and her mind has changed a little bit. She's starting to lean towards wanting to take the courses involved in that too. So I would imagine the more you're around things like this, the more you become interested in different areas of firefighting.
Yeah, and there's different specialties. You can go to hazmat, you can go to auto extrication, or firefighters are kind of the do-all. So, I'm not big on ladders, don't like going on roofs, but if I have to, I'll go up there. So yeah, you get hooked on it.
Yeah. Is there a particular story of a fire or a call that you experienced over the 22 years that you've been doing this that really sticks out in your mind as the most memorable of all of them?
No, the most memorable ones that I have are really wouldn't be ones I want to share, just because of the tragedies that were involved. But, I guess it went on to say that if at any time you get a thank you, at the end of whether it's a call or just an auto accident or somebody comes back to see you, even if 3 months ago you got them out of the car, a very bad wreck, and they stop by and at least let you know how they're doing, because that's the one thing that we don't get. We don't really get the closure of the event that they ever come back to say, hey, thanks for what you did, and we appreciate you helping us.
Yeah. Now, what do you advise or suggest, not just for Westerlo in terms of someone who wants to volunteer, but volunteering in general? Like, do you just walk up to the firehouse and say, hey, I'm here, I want to volunteer?
You can do that. First thing I would say is it takes a little bit of patience. Remember that we're all firefighters. We're also full-time employed somewhere else. So you contact your local firehouse. There's fireinu.org is a New York State push to what they'll do is you sign up, fill out the form online, and it'll actually direct you and make the initial contact for the firehouse or the fire district that you live in, and then I'll actually initiate the process.
Now, is it certification? Is that what you wind up, a certified firefighter? Yep. Now, does certification travel from one area to another? In other words, if I lived in Westerlo and I was moving to somewhere else that had a volunteer fire company, would I automatically be able to transfer my certification?
If you get a New York State certificate, it's valid anywhere in New York State, and then you can also take a national certification exam, and then if you traveled anywhere in the country, you'd have the same standardized qualifications.
And most towns, municipalities, villages, cities are volunteer nowadays. There's not too many paid fire forces left.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. I know the city of Albany is paid, and Schenectady too.
City of Albany, Schenectady, Watervliet, Cohoes, City of Troy. Your bigger municipalities are primarily paid. They typically do 80,000 or more calls a year. A lot of them are EMS calls. But your smaller municipalities and towns, as soon as you get outside the city limits, Voorheesville is volunteer. Slingerlands is volunteer. So even some of your all the towns in Bethlehem, I know, are all volunteer. So,
and would the city paid firefighters ever wind up getting involved with a mutual aid call?
It gets a little bit because of the union issues. They typically do and they don't. It all depends on what the nature of the call is and what the location is. Yeah. If it's right on the line, then yeah, they will.
Well, I appreciate you coming in today.
Yep.
And one more time, are these exercises that you do, Is that something that people could watch? I mean, could somebody come and watch what you do just to get the experience for themselves and maybe make a decision as to whether they might like to become a volunteer firefighter?
We've actually got a large number of press that'll be coming down, so certainly there'll be like a viewing area if you did want to come down and see it. So at the Berne-Knox-Westerlo School, 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in.
All right, thank you
And
for helping get the word
Good luck
out.
with your exercise. I hope it all goes well.